Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live stream for July 2026. Starting the show a little early here for the pre-stream chat, if anybody's interested, and checking to make sure all the bits and pieces are working. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live stream for July. Excellent. Okay, I think we're good. We're up for sure on YouTube and Facebook, so that's good news. Let me just turn off the speaker because I know that generates a lot of background buzz, and we don't need that. Welcome to it, folks. If this is your first time visiting, let me just see, do we have anybody in yet? We don't have anybody in yet. But obviously there will be... it's funny how many people I get that watch it after the live stream. I guess that makes sense. I mean, people are busy. It's the weekend. Got other things to do rather than spend it with some real estate guy on the internet. But I do encourage folks to try to catch the live stream just because the questions that folks ask after the stream or when they reach out to me directly after the stream's over, it doesn't really help anybody but them, which is great. I love helping individuals solve their problems. But the answers oftentimes would end up helping a lot of other folks who may end up seeing the stream. So I do encourage folks to attend. Which I guess makes sense since I do the thing. I hope you all brought your favorite coffee. I know I brought mine. Today's show might be a little bit different. And maybe this is the oversharing portion of the pre-show. I've got a kidney stones thing happening. And for anyone who's ever had kidney stones, I think that you will agree that they are unpleasant. So we'll see how things go. Facebook is complaining my resolution is too high, which is profoundly annoying. But I'm not going to change it. So if you are on Facebook, you can also go over to YouTube. I'm pretty sure we're up on X as well. But in any event, yeah, so kidney stones. I've had kidney stones before a couple times, and thank goodness I've never had to go in for any procedures to deal with them. They've always been able to get resolved. But I have never experienced pain like I've broken plenty of bones in my life, but boy, I tell you, kidney stones are the worst. Let me just check X. Yep. Okay. X is working. Great. Okay. So, a shout out to all my fellow people who have kidney stones experience. Well, I don't know who knows if it's going to kick in. I'm about a week in, and it frequently takes a while for it to peak, and you'll get moments of peace with prolonged periods of you have this crazy abdominal pain that kind of radiates down, and you'll find a position that's comfortable, and then that's suddenly within a couple of minutes it's not comfortable. Then you move to another position, and that's comfortable for a minute, and then it's horrible. It's the worst thing ever. So if that kicks in during the show, I'm going to excuse myself. Thank you for attending, and go do the move from place to place shuffle to try to find a comfortable position. I know the pre-show is for anything. I do not understand the logic behind the folks at Facebook. Absolutely don't. Particularly as they manage live streams. Maybe live streaming that they've been providing just doesn't make them any money, or it's causing them more trouble than it's worth. But I have never seen a company appearing to be so dedicated to the proposition of making a feature they offer difficult to impossible to use. It would be different if I were in charge, but I'm not. So, for instance, this is a new alert, right? They've changed yet again how you get to the point where you start streaming. And first of all, the system apparently lost the scheduled event that I had done for today, because I know I did it. So I had to redo it this morning. But now it's complaining by the fact that I'm not streaming in 1920 by 1080 or lower. It's not 2016. 4K streaming is totally a thing everywhere else. And why Facebook has an issue with it is absolutely idiotic. So, I don't know. I'm assuming we're up on Facebook. Let me look. I mean, the stream is showing as up. Let's see here. Let's go to that page. And here we are. Let me see if I'm getting audio. Yeah, it's going. So I don't understand. I don't get their logic. You would think you would want to provide like the super amazing version of a feature. Why be an also ran, right? In terms of offering a feature, why wouldn't you want everybody else who offers that feature to wonder why is theirs so much better than ours, instead of everybody wondering why does Facebook's suck so hard compared to ours? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I've got my own homespun mocha this morning. It's particularly good. Man, I tell you, when you put raw honey in a mocha as its sweetener, so good. We've got a few interesting things. I usually will find a whole lot more news articles and things to discuss for the show once we do the stats. And it was, obviously I wasn't feeling great yesterday. I was very concerned I wasn't going to be able to do today because yesterday I was absolutely experiencing the whole kidney stone shuffle. So I didn't have as many articles I had a couple of core ones that I always use, but I found a few that are entertaining more because of how dumb they are than how informative they are. It's so fun to see how different outlets absolutely interpret different data in opposite ways. It's mind blowing, and so much of it, if you think about it, has to do with vested interests, right? And what they need to tell you. Where are we at on time? We're almost there. We're just about 6 minutes out. So, the Association of Realtors is a good example. Now, typically, at their core, they've got good numbers, but oftentimes their interpretation of them is a little bit weird or skewed, because they have a vested interest in wanting to attract more real estate agents, right? Because the National Association of Realtors, who owns Realtor.com, they make money off of real estate agents paying their dues every year. So the idea is you want to share news that encourage people to become realtors. So there's always that. And you know what? That's just true of everything. You have to you have to ask that question to yourself every single time. Who is the source of this information? What is their vested interest? And what is the likelihood that they're sharing with me a skewed version of that data? And honestly, that's just kind of true everywhere, right? I mean, of everything. Politics, personal interactions, right? People want to share with you the information that helps them the most in whatever thing they're doing. So anyway, I don't know why I kind of went off on that tangent a little bit, but if you've got any questions, and for those of you who are absolutely new, welcome to the pre-show of the Coffee and Real Estate live chat. This is something I've been doing for years that just lets us have an opportunity to sit down and look at the most important numbers for the most recent month that we have statistics for. And we try to figure out where we are, what got us here, and where we might be going from this information. And then at the end, I share a few news articles that might be interesting that kind of give us an idea of what's happening nationally, and then we can compare some of those national things to our situation here in Silicon Valley. And then also, of course, I've got a couple of cool tools that I use for analyzing markets that let me look anywhere in the country and anywhere, right down to just our local zip code or local area, and get some ideas of where we're at in terms of real estate numbers. So feel free to share your questions if you've got any. You can do that in, I have sort of a muxed chat thing over here that lets me see there's two different windows. So as we're going through this, feel free to ask your questions. I will do my best to answer them. And if I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, then, we can do a real quick hit of the internet and see what kind of data we find, and then try to process that and come up with a good answer for you. But feel free to ask those in there. If it may take me a minute or two to notice that your post is over there, because the posts are over there and the data is over here. So just be patient with me, and we'll work through it all together. But whatever questions you've got are fine. Then I'll give my earnest attempt to answer it as accurately as I can. So here we are, and the thing that's amazing, here we are to July. We are halfway through 2026. And for me personally, 2026 has been, it's been a year full of horrible things. Just big life things with this whole kidney stone thing just being the latest of that. For those of you who've watched the show before, I've shared kind of what's been personally going on with me over the course of this year, so I don't need to turn this into a Robert appreciation thing. So this will not go down as one of my best years, just in terms of general stuff that's going on. But I hope it's going well for you. I hope for somebody out there this year is not the train wreck that it has been for me. But, you just got to keep swinging, right? There's no point in stopping when you've got some unpleasant things that have kind of popped their head up. Anything else interesting going on? I've got an article I think I saved off that article. Or maybe not. Maybe I didn't. You know what? I don't think I did. Hold on. Or at least I didn't open them all up. Yeah, that is correct. I did not. Interesting data on the interpretation of pending home sales, like I said, from different outlets, and we'll discuss those. Also interesting, let's see. I think that's the same article I opened before, but we'll see here. One interesting thing is sort of some markets of opportunity out there for folks. If you're looking to invest, there are definitely some places out there that are showing interesting switches that I think will work well for buyers who are perhaps looking for that new thing. Whoops. That's weird. Oh, well, at least it's working. All right. Oh, and it's 10 o'clock. There we go. Welcome to it. Hello, everyone. We just wrapped up the pre-show here. Sorry, I was distracted by some news items I was sorting through. My name is Robert Whitelaw. I'm a licensed real estate broker right here in Santa Clara County, servicing the vast majority of the southern Silicon Valley area, all the way from Gilroy up to, say, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, those areas. Been doing this since 1988, and this is the Coffee and Real Estate Live Chat. This is where we get together and talk about the latest numbers and news and data about our local markets that influence it most. and give us an opportunity to see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going in the real estate market, and maybe even look into that crystal ball a little bit and see if we can't figure out where we're going to go over the next few months. Now, this is a particularly interesting time to join me, primarily because we're at the middle of the year. June is typically by realtors touted as the month to get your home sold, just because of volume, numbers of homes that get sold, that type of thing. And we've talked about this in past shows about how that's kind of true and kind of not. It really depends on your situation in terms of A, getting sold, and B, getting sold for the highest amount of money. And that's a conversation that we can have at some point if anyone wants to ask about it or is interested in understanding more. Or you can go back to last month's Coffee and Real Estate live chat, and we talk about it there. So, as I said, again, Robert Whitelaw, licensed real estate broker. You can find me at soldbyrobert.com. If you'd like to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, that's what I do. I help people achieve those goals, so feel free to reach out to me. So let's go ahead and jump in. And we're just going to look at the stats. We're going to look at the numbers for June. And we always start off with the total homes on the market. If you think of the real estate market as a great big supermarket, and homes are products on the shelves, these are the shelves, right? And it tells us how many homes did buyers have to choose from right out there in the market in June. And it tells us also how much competition did you have if you were trying to sell your home in June of 2026. Another thing to keep in mind is we compare these year to year. We don't do month over month for this comparison. We do it later just to see trends and where things are going. But it's important to look at it year over year so you eliminate the seasonal influences. So, right, because selling your home in the heart of winter is very different from the heart of summer. And just because more people want to move in the summertime so their kids don't have to be interrupted during school sessions, that kind of thing. So there's definitely those seasonal influences we want to eliminate. So that's why we compare last year to this year when we're doing these. So this is June 2025 compared to 2026. We can see overall in Santa Clara County, not by much. Last year we had 2,319 homes on the market. This year we have 2,302. That's a 1% drop from the same time last year. In San Jose, again, a 1% drop, 1,181 homes on the market last year, 1,172 this year. In Morgan Hill, we had a 9% drop in the total number of homes on the market, 128 homes in June of 2025, and in June of 2026, that dropped down to 117. Gilroy had the biggest drop, 138 homes on the market in Gilroy in 2025 for June, and in June of 2026, we saw that drop down to 98, so that was a 29% drop. So in terms of overall inventory, the total supply of homes, very stable, relatively speaking, compared to last year, with the exception of Gilroy, which saw a dramatic drop in the total inventory. We'll see if that affected anything with some of the later numbers, just to see where Gilroy is at. But for right now, that's sort of the standout stat. We just saw the biggest drop in that community. Next, let's take a look at the total new listings. New listings represents the number of sellers who put their home on the market. So they sat through a meeting with a real estate agent. They signed a listing agreement. This represents the date that listing went live on the internet through the MLS and all the other venues that you look at, like Redfin and Zillow and Trulia and all those. Interestingly enough, totally flat for Santa Clara County overall. 1,443 last year, 1,442 this year. I can't remember the last time I saw them that close together, but it represents just a very stable number of folks adding their homes to the marketplace. We didn't see a big increase. Well, we didn't see an increase at all, which is interesting to note. Now, we did see an increase in San Jose, 720 last year, 760 this year, but it's only a 6% increase, and only 40 homes total in that shift of increasing listings. In Morgan Hill, it was actually down 24%. 78 homes last year were listed in the month of June of 2025. In June of 2026, that dropped down to 59 homes. In Gilroy, June of 2025 saw 66 homes get listed. In June of 2026, 44 homes. So that was a 33% drop from 2025. Next, total number of homes sold. That one's pretty self-explanatory. How many homes actually sold? And this is going to be one indicator of why we saw inventory drop a little bit. So we had super stagnant new homes added, right? But we had increases in the total number of homes sold compared to the same time last year. Now, in the county overall, that was 1,147 homes sold in June of 2025. And in June of 2026, that went up to 1,217. So just a 6% drop. But that's obviously a contributing factor to why we saw overall inventory do what it did. San Jose up 2%, 560 homes last year, 572 homes this year. In Morgan Hill, we had a 49% increase in the total number of homes sold, 35 homes last year, 52 homes this year in June of 2026. And in Gilroy, in June of 2025, we had 31 homes sold, for a 29% increase in June of 2026 to 40 homes. So kind of interesting, large numbers increases for Morgan Hill and Gilroy with smaller ones in San Jose. I've seen a lot more activity, a lot more buyer interest in the more South Valley areas, and I think a lot of that has to do with deal taking, particularly in Gilroy, where the perception, and I think the reality is, you can get a lot more house for your money in a community like Gilroy. Now, before we move on from that, the one thing I like to do is, did we add homes to the market or did we take homes away? In other words, we sold 1,217 homes, but we listed 1,442 in the county overall. So that means we added 225 homes to the market overall. In Santa Clara County. In San Jose, we added 188. In Morgan Hill, we added 7. And in Gilroy, we added 4. So across the board overall, we did add, we did end up selling fewer than we listed, right? Which leaves more homes in the queue. But we also had that decrease in the new listings, relatively speaking, with only an increase in San Jose to the tune of 6%. So I think that kind of explains why the inventory numbers are where they are, or why they've been so stagnant. But we aren't in those days when we would sell more homes than we had listed. So, and that did exist not too long ago. Now let's look at months of inventory. This is an interesting one. Basically, what this is a way of looking at the numbers. If we froze the total number of homes sold and the total active listings or inventory numbers where they are, how long would it take to sell off that inventory at those sales per month numbers? And the reason why we care is because at about a 4 or 4.5 months of inventory number, that represents a balanced market nationally. So if you have a number higher than 4 or 4.5 months, that typically reflects a buyer's market. And anything less than that reflects a seller's market. So as you're going to see here, we're still very much in seller's market territory, as this number points to. And in Santa Clara County, we had no change. 2 months last year, 2 months this year for June 2025 and 2026. San Jose down a little bit. It was 2.1 months in June of 2025. 2 months in June of 2026 for overall, again, a 5% drop. Morgan Hill, huge drop in months of inventory. 3.7 months a year ago in June of 2025. And in June of 2026, we see that having dropped to 2.3 months for a 38% drop. Gilroy, even bigger drop. Now, a year ago, this number was sitting at balanced. 4.5 months in June of 2025. In June of 2026, dropped all the way down to 2.5 months for a 44% drop. So a pretty dramatic change in those two communities, really reflecting the lack of inventory growth that we've seen in these markets and really in the markets in general. Let's see here. Next, homes pending or contingent. Now, to understand what this means an offer was accepted or contingencies were released. And we don't need to get too bound up in this, but when you buy a home, typically it goes contingent, meaning we have a contract that the buyer and seller have agreed on, but the buyer has contingencies that they have listed that need to be met before escrow can close. So what would be the contingencies? It would be the loan for the buyer. It would be for the buyer to do inspections, for the buyer to do anything that they want to do prior to committing to the sale at close of escrow. And if they sign off on all those contingencies, then they're committed to that sale. And if they don't carry out and actually end up purchasing the home, they end up paying a financial penalty. So contingency basically protects you as a buyer. It lets you say, hey, you know what? I saw something weird about the foundation, so I'm going to get a engineer to come and take a look at the foundation. And if they find it's moving in 6 different directions, I'm not buying this house if it's going to cost another $100,000 to fix that problem. It's that kind of a thing, right? It's all about the due diligence that you're going to do as a buyer to make sure that the home that you're purchasing for hundreds and thousands and possibly millions of dollars doesn't have a lot of hidden things that you're going to need to fuss with after you buy. All right. So, and the other thing to know about this number is it's in general a predictor of how many sold homes you're going to see in the following month. It takes about 30 days to 45 days for an escrow to close. So if you've accepted an offer, typically 30 to 45 days later, you have a sold home because escrow closes. And when you see big discrepancies here, you see, homes going into escrow that aren't coming out of escrow. In other words, they're failing to close. Another stat that's interesting to track, which I do. But this is a way to calibrate to the future number of how many homes are going to sell. So in Santa Clara County, it was actually up 7% from the same time last year. In June of 2025, we had 1,014 homes go pending or contingent. In June of 2026, that number went up to 1,083. In San Jose, 11% increase, 490 homes in June of 2025, 546 homes in June of 2026. Morgan Hill saw a 22% increase. 41 homes went pending last year in June of 2025. And in June of 2026, that number went up to 50. And then in Gilroy, we saw a 30% increase. 30 homes went pending last year in June of 2025. And in June of 2026, that number went up to 39%. Okay, next, let's take a look at average original list price. Now, original list price. The reason why I like to share this number is it's a way to get a look inside of the mindset of modern sellers, of sellers today, because this number is how much did a seller agree to originally list their home for when they listed it for sale? Meaning that very first day it went into the MLS, that very first entry where they input, this is what we will take for our house, that's what this number is. This doesn't include any increases or decreases in the asking price in later days, weeks, or months. It's just that initial expectation. So it's really a, what did sellers hope to get for their home? And we've seen interesting trends on this one, particularly over the last few months, where this number's actually been going down, which is unusual. We've seen this number go up to double digits in past markets. But right now, in general, it's heading down. In Santa Clara County overall, it's actually down 1.5% from the same time last year. So sellers are expecting, on average, to get 1.5% less for their home than they did a year ago. The number last year was $1,928,195. This year, it's $1,898,984 in Santa Clara County overall. San Jose, it's down 1.1%, $1,494,032 in June of 2025. And then in June of 2026, those expectations dropped to $1,477,487. In Morgan Hill, down 0.2%. So, and given the sample size of Morgan Hill, that makes this a wash. Buyers or sellers in general are expecting to get the same amount this year in June of 2026 as they were in June of 2025. But that number is $1,644,262 in June of 2025. In June of 2026, it dropped just a fraction to $1,641,088. Gilroy saw the biggest drop, 10%, $1,423,395 in June of 2025. In June of 2026, $1,280,805. And that, to me, represents a very interesting calibration on the part of sellers. You very rarely see this much of a drop, but clearly the folks in Gilroy are on average coming in with lowered expectations compared to the same time last year. Now, let's take a look at the average sales price. This is what homes actually sold for, and we're going to compare these to the expected numbers and see where they fall. What did sellers on average get more than they were hoping for in June, or did they get less? So let's start off with Santa Clara County. We can see that it is down 1.7% from the same time last year. So in June of 2025, homes were selling on average for $2,125,072, which is a crazy number to consider as the average. It went down in June of 2026 by 1.7%, as I mentioned before, to $2,089,693. In San Jose, down 3.5%, $1,620,792 in June of 2025. In June of 2026, that number dropped to $1,564,872. In Morgan Hill, we saw a drop of 3.4%. Last year, the average home sold for $1,715,140. This year, $1,656,373. Gilroy down 0.4%. And we'll talk about this in a second. But so last year in June of 2025, $1,315,318. And then in June of 2026, $1,310,298. I think one reason why Gilroy has the smallest number here is reflected in the expectations number. The folks in Gilroy who are selling have simply, in general, been better calibrated to what the market is. So I think that in general, that's kind of kept prices lower. But also, let's never forget, one of the key things relating to price is demand. And I think there's just been, in terms of the amount of supply available in Gilroy versus the amount of demand for homes in Gilroy, you just haven't seen that number increase that much. Now, as we see prices drop in, I hate to use the term more desirable, or higher demand markets, you tend to see this happen, which would also tend to suggest that prices will continue to drop in in Gilroy, as we see prices drop in places like San Jose. As it becomes a situation where, hey, if I just spend $100,000 more, I can get that place in San Jose, and my commute stops being 40 minutes and starts being 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Those are some of the equations going on in buyers' minds, and whether or not they're trading a certain amount of money for a certain amount of convenience. And there have been times in the past, very recently in fact, where that trade-off of costing less but driving more made total sense. If you can save $500,000 by moving to Gilroy, and all you're doing is increasing your commute by a certain amount, particularly in a world now where a lot of people don't have to commute every day. The last remaining son who still lives with me, who's actually moving out into his own place next month, he works for an office right there in downtown San Jose, and he goes into the office because he wants to. He goes in, and he only goes in once or twice a week, but there's no requirement. None of the people that he works with are in that office. They're all on the East Coast. So there's and he's probably, from a computer network standpoint, probably better set up here in my house than he would be if he went into the office in San Jose. But that's the point. And I know I have an awful lot of buyer clients who fall into that category. Absolutely, I have quite a few who don't fall into that category, who are folks who actually have to show up to work every day. More and more high-tech companies, well, even high-tech, because obviously a police officer or a nurse can't work from home. They actually have to go to a place and do hands-on things. But there's an awful lot of folks out there who have this flexibility, and it can be reflected in where they live. They don't have to physically be there. Which also leads into an interesting discussion about folks who are actually leaving the state, which is a recurring theme with an awful lot of my folks who are interested in leaving the state and setting up roots somewhere else. Okay. So just to sort of calibrate you in terms of money for this average sales price versus original list price, if we compare those two, in every single case, homes sold for more than the average original list price in the month of June. To the tune of, in Santa Clara County, home sellers typically got over their asking price or their desired original list price to the tune of $190,709. In San Jose, the average seller got $87,385 above their original list price. In Morgan Hill, they got $15,285 over. And in Gilroy, they got $29,493 over their original list price. So in all cases, they are still getting above expectations